And so in our permission system, what we do is the following. If a user is specifically revoked at the specific hierarchy level, then they won't have those specific rights or access at that level. So I will stop here really quickly just to see if there are any questions. Okay, somebody has asked, please explain the grade outline. So I assume that you're talking about this user Capello finance role. Is that right? Okay. So what this means is that if I scroll over, you'll see that this role has no effect on the project role training. So it just shows you that this particular role has no impact. The reason is the finance role actually just grants you ability to see the quota as well as the billing page. So for the particular project you have, it doesn't apply. That's why it's grayed out. Any other questions? Okay. All right, let me keep going then. Now, you can also reinstate the role that you revoked, and I'll go ahead and do that just so that I have full access to this particular project. So at this point, let me go through a very simple use case scenario where now we're going to Subverging and doing a checkout, and you can see how the different permissions actually interact with each other. So let me go back to the project. So you can see that with Subverging, I now have a URL, which is provisioned. And if you're familiar with the Tortoise SVN client, I'm just going to do a checkout of that URL. All right, I'm going to use my Capello user because that's the user I have created. And you'll see that because I actually have nothing in that repository, so I'm actually going to go ahead and create a repository here, actually import it in there so that there will be some files in there. So here I can basically do a import into this repository. And you will see that I've added that file into our repository. So just to check that I did that correctly, I can go back to our website and I can use the internal browser here, and what you'll see that we do have that test text file in there. Now let's just do some roles configuration and you can see how it interacts with each other. So if I go to projects and I go to our for that specific service version, I have a link here called service permissions. So for every single service, you have a service permission link that you can configure security just for that basic hierarchy for you to configure security. So let me go into service permissions. So you will see right here that I have general access and I have administrator access, and I can configure additional security here. So right now I currently have rewrite access. So what I like to do is I'm going to revoke all my access from Capello, and then I'm going to show you to do a quick update, and you will see that I will no longer have access to the particular project. So if I revoke my general access, as well as I revoke my administrator access, now let me just explain a little bit what happens here. So what's happening here is when you are changing security in our system, especially with subversion, what we do is, behind the scenes, our security system takes the security you configure and actually sync down that change down to a specific subversion ACL file. And it's that ACL file that actually controls your subversion security. Okay? And so typically it takes about less than a minute for that to happen, and sometimes seeing it to be less than 10-15 seconds. And because there are these jobs that runs in the background, that happens. But if there are a lot of jobs or you have a really big hierarchy, it may take a minute or two before everything fully goes through. So from time to time, if some security settings are not working, you may want to just wait a little longer just so that our system actually sync down that security changes down to the ACL file level. Okay. So now that I've done that, you can see that we have Capello has no permissions. And what I will do is I'll go back to our tortoise, and I'll do a update. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this file, and I'll do a check-in. Let me do an SVN checkout, and you will be able to see it. Okay, so I did one thing. So the reason why this works, and let me explain, is that in our security system, the owner account always have access to everything, and that is by design. And so because I'm logged in as the owner, which is Capello, I do still have access to this particular repository. So in order to show that this does not work for another user, I actually have to use another user. So I have another user called Trilogy Test, so I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to make some changes here. And then I'll do a commit using the Trilogy Test user. And you will see that because that user does not have access to this repository, that's going to fail. Oh, did I? I must have. Let me remove the caching of the credentials.